Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. The clock had already struck 8:47 p.m. when Danielle finally walked through the door of our Manhattan condo, her heels tapping crisply against the marble as if nothing was wrong. I was sitting at the kitchen island, arms folded, eyes fixed on the door like I'd been waiting for a storm to hit, and had just walked in wearing a tailored blazer and Chanel perfume. "You're late," I said, my voice low, not raising it yet, not yet. Danielle barely looked at me. She tossed her keys into the ceramic bowl by the entryway and slid off her coat in one smooth motion. "There was a last-minute meeting," she said, her tone clipped. "Actually," she paused, glanced at me, and added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "I got promoted." I didn't smile back. "That's so?" "Yeah." She walked over to the fridge, poured herself a glass of sparkling water like it was any other Tuesday night. "Executive Director of Client Growth. Remember the Vegas deal I closed? It paid off." I stood. "You get a promotion, and don't call." She took a sip, calm as stone. It was hectic. People were around. "What do you want me to say, Scott?" I moved a little closer. "I want you to say something real." That made her pause. Just a flicker, her left hand tightening slightly around the glass. But it passed too quickly. She turned to me, her expression unreadable. "I just did." "No, you gave me an explanation, not an answer." I searched her face. "You smell like his cologne." Danielle blinked once. Her jaw tensed, but she didn't flinch. "Whose?" I stared at her. "Don't insult both of us." Her voice grew sharper. "So now I can't get a promotion without you accusing me of sleeping my way up the ladder?" "You tell me." I snapped. "Wow," she muttered, then shook her head. "You really think that little of me?" I walked past her, then turned. "No, I think that little of him. But you? You're making me wonder." That hung in the air like a grenade, its pin pulled. She stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "You want to fight, Scott? Pick something real. Don't stand there pretending to be some wounded husband when this marriage has been circling the drain for months." I froze. "That what you tell yourself?" "It's what you made it," she fired back. "Your endless questions, your silent judgment, like I'm always one step from failing you." I breathed through my nose, heart thudding. All I asked for was honesty. And maybe a phone call. "And maybe I wanted one night," she whispered, "where I was just, not married, not accountable." That hit harder than anything else she could have said. She turned and walked into the bedroom, leaving me in the kitchen with nothing but her words echoing through my head. I stood there for a long time, staring at the floor. That apartment, high up in the clouds, all glass and steel, had always felt like a trophy, a sign we'd made it. But tonight, it felt like a trap. I used to love this life. Mornings that started with overpriced espresso and podcasts, late nights tweaking architecture models at my drafting desk, and weekends at the river trail. Danielle would meet me at wine bars after work, still in heels, laughing about her latest pitch. We used to be a team. Now it felt like she was playing for another one. And me? I didn't even know the rules anymore. The very next night, Danielle came home early, like shockingly early. It was barely 6:10 p.m. when I heard the door open. No clicking heels, no annoyed sigh, just the quiet thud of her bag being set down and the faint hum of a melody from her lips. That alone made me glance up from the sofa. She walked in with this almost unfamiliar softness. Hair tied back, no blazer, no pretense. Just her, in a cozy gray sweater and jeans, carrying a glossy black shopping bag in one hand and a brown paper grocery bag in the other. "Hey," she said, stepping out of her shoes. "I thought I'd surprise you." I raised an eyebrow. "You did." Danielle crossed the room and handed me the shopping bag like it was my birthday. I pulled out a sleek, matte black bottle of cologne. Tom Ford, expensive. Too expensive for a just because gift. "You've been running low," she offered, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I remembered the scent you liked." I looked at her, not the bottle. "And what's this for?" She smiled faintly. "For us." She disappeared into the kitchen before I could respond. I followed, watching her unpack filet mignon, fresh asparagus, garlic mashed potatoes, all stuff she never buys unless we're hosting or it's some kind of peace offering. I leaned against the counter. "Did something happen at work?" "Nope," she said cheerily, pulling out a skillet. "Just realized I've been absent lately. Maybe I've been putting too much of myself into the office and not enough here." I studied her carefully. Every move was graceful, measured, like she'd rehearsed it. "Is this about last night?" I asked. Danielle glanced over, keeping her tone light. It's about more than last night. She sautéed the asparagus with oil and garlic, humming softly like this was just another cozy evening at home. But I couldn't stop watching her, not like a husband admiring his wife, but like a man trying to decode a message. When dinner was ready, she lit candles. Candles. We hadn't used those since our anniversary, 2 years ago. She poured wine, raised her glass, and said softly, "To us, if we still believe in that." I clinked her glass, but didn't drink. Why the sudden change of heart? Danielle sighed, looking down at her plate. I've been thinking, maybe the job's been hurting us. Maybe I've been hurting us. I let the silence hang for a moment before answering. You said you wanted one night where you weren't married. She didn't flinch, but her fork paused midair. I know what I said, and I meant it, but that doesn't mean I don't want this. Her eyes met mine, steady, maybe even sincere. I still want forever. I stared at her across the candlelight. Everything about the scene screamed romance, redemption, even. But I couldn't unsee the flicker I saw in her eyes the night before. The way her voice tightened when I mentioned another man. Now, she was perfect. Too perfect. I want to believe you, I said quietly. Danielle reached across the table and brushed her fingers over mine. Then do. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just let her touch linger while something inside me refused to settle. Maybe I should have leaned in. Said I forgave her. Let the moment heal something. But instead, I sat still. And somewhere behind my silence, I knew. This was a performance. And I wasn't clapping. It was one of those sleek, overpriced midtown lounges where the music is just a bit too loud and everyone's pretending not to care who's watching. The firm had rented the upper level for the Friday night mixer. Glass walls, ambient lighting, signature cocktails with stupid names like Revenue Royale. And of course, Danielle was glowing in her element. She wore a deep emerald dress I hadn't seen before, the kind that made heads turn when she walked past. She clutched her wine like a prop, flashing practice smiles at coworkers and dropping buzzwords like confetti. It was clear she belonged here. Me? I was the accessory tonight, the supportive husband nodding in the background while she held court. I stood near the bar, swirling my drink and watching the room. That's when I noticed her. A woman across the lounge, maybe late 20s, with sharp cheekbones and a sharper stare. She was tall, confident, dressed in all black, blazer, heels, not trying to impress anyone. But the way she was looking at me, that wasn't polite curiosity. It was deliberate, unbroken. I glanced away, then back. Still watching. I turned toward Danielle, who was now mid-conversation with 2 men I vaguely recognized from LinkedIn photos, finance guys. She laughed a little too loud, tilted her head at something one of them said. And I swear, for a second, her hand brushed the arm of the taller one. I cleared my throat. Need another drink? She turned to me with a polished smile. I'm good, babe. Then, just as she looked away again, she saw her. The woman in black. Still watching. And just like that, Danielle stiffened. She didn't say a word. Didn't even fake a smile. She just grabbed my wrist, not gently, and whispered, "Let's go." I blinked. What? I feel sick, she said quickly. The shrimp. I knew I shouldn't have eaten it. You haven't eaten yet. She ignored that and started pulling me toward the elevator, fast and tense. Danielle, I said, trying to keep up. What's going on? I told you. She snapped, jabbing the elevator button with unnecessary force. Spicy shrimp. I feel nauseous. You've had 1 sip of wine and half a cracker. Can we not do this here? She hissed, barely looking at me. I don't want to throw up in front of clients. The elevator doors opened, and she dragged me inside like a woman fleeing a crime scene. Only when the doors closed did I see her reflection in the mirrored wall, her eyes darting, jaw clenched. Was that Riley? I asked, watching her face. She paused, too long. What? The woman staring at me. That was Riley, right? Danielle exhaled, looking down at her shoes. She's my boss's wife. I raised an eyebrow. You said your boss was a guy? He is, she said quickly. That's his wife. They're complicated. I don't know their situation. I folded my arms. She looked at me like she knew something. She's just dramatic. Danielle's voice was brittle now. Look, let's just go home, all right. The ride down was silent, but her fingers were shaking. And whatever nausea she claimed to feel, it wasn't from the shrimp. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon, the kind where time feels padded. I was sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, coffee lukewarm. The apartment was silent except for the occasional ding of incoming work emails and the steady rhythm of city traffic 8 floors below. Danielle had left that morning like everything was normal. Coffee in a travel mug, blazer over her arm, a kiss on the cheek that didn't linger long enough to feel real. At 2:14 p.m., the buzzer rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Definitely not a second buzz, sharper this time. I stood up and checked the screen by the door. Her, Riley, still in black, leaning casually against the building's entry column like she owned it. That same unreadable expression. Her lips barely moved when she said into the camera, "Open the door, Scott. We need to talk." I hesitated for a second too long, then hit the button. The knock came moments later, quick and certain. I opened the door. She didn't waste time. Riley stepped inside like she knew the place, like she'd been here before. She looked around, the glass coffee table, the wall of books, the wedding photos still hanging near the hallway, then turned to me with a wry smile. "Nice place. Looks like a catalog. Very curated. Can I help you?" I asked, standing squarely by the door. "Actually," she said, setting her handbag on the counter, "I'm here to help you." I stayed silent. She stepped closer and held out a thick envelope. "What's this?" I asked, not reaching for it yet. "Proof," she said, "that you're not crazy." I finally took it and pulled the flap open. Photos. Printed. Dozens of them. Danielle. Her boss. Riley's husband. Different outfits. Different restaurants. Some hand-on-knee moments that no business dinner should include. One taken from behind glass. Hotel lobby. "Your wife's been busy," Riley said dryly. "So has my husband." I looked up. "How long have you known?" "Months," she replied, walking over to the window. "But I needed confirmation. And patience. Turns out, betrayal has a schedule." I set the photos down carefully. "Why bring this to me?" She turned, met my eyes. "Because I want something. And so do you." "I don't want revenge," I said. She laughed. "That's what people say right before they burn everything down." I didn't reply. Riley walked back over and leaned against the counter. "There's a party this Friday. Private, off books. My husband always hosts it. Selective invite list. No spouses allowed. Danielle's going." I narrowed my eyes. "And you want me to what? Show up with you?" "Exactly. I'm not the type to make a scene." She smirked. "You don't have to. Just walk in with me. Let the rest write itself." I shook my head slowly. "Why me?" "Because she's still lying to you. Still trying to control the narrative. And you deserve to see it unravel from the inside." I looked down at the photos again. The tilt of Danielle's smile. The closeness. The intimacy she reserved for me. Now spent like loose change. "Why not confront them yourself?" I asked. "I did," she said. "He gaslit me. Said I was paranoid. That's when I hired the photographer." Silence settled for a moment. The kind that has weight. Riley's voice dropped, calm and direct. "Look, you can stay here and pretend this didn't happen. Or we can pull the mask off together." I didn't answer right away. I just stared out the window. The city looked the same. Cold towers, yellow cabs, people rushing from one lie to the next. But inside me, something shifted. I didn't know if I wanted revenge, but I definitely wanted the truth to cost her something. The next few days felt like living inside a snow globe. Everything looked clean and still on the outside, but inside, frozen silence, swirling with the weight of things unsaid. Danielle started playing house like nothing had changed. She'd kiss my cheek in the mornings, hum while brushing her hair, even text me mid-afternoon with things like, "Thinking of making pasta tonight. You in?" But her warmth didn't fool me anymore. It was all too curated, like a script she was trying too hard to stick to. And so I played my part too. "Sure," I texted back. "Pasta sounds good." That night, we sat across from each other at the table, steam rising from her homemade rigatoni like a peace offering. But neither of us really ate. We made small talk, surface-level stuff, the kind you have with someone sitting next to you on a long flight. "How's that new project coming along?" she asked, sipping her wine. "Slow. Building codes are a nightmare." She smiled like she cared. "Well, you always figure it out." "Yep," I said flatly. "Eventually." Our eyes met for a split second, and in that moment, we both knew. The whole thing was rotting from the inside. Later, we sat on opposite ends of the couch. She scrolled through her phone with a half-fake grin, showing me a meme about cats working in offices. I chuckled. Cute. Then I turned back to my laptop. This dance went on for 3 days. Passive smiles. choreographed dinners, perfectly timed I love yous. But beneath it all, Cold War. The kind where both sides are heavily armed and waiting. On Thursday, she leaned against the bathroom doorframe as I shaved, watching me in the mirror. You've been quiet lately. I met her gaze through the glass. So have you. She tilted her head. You okay? I nodded. Yeah, just tired. She took a slow step toward me, wrapping her arms around my waist from behind. We're okay, right? I didn't answer right away. I let her words sit there, empty, trembling in the air. Then I said, sure, we're okay. She kissed my shoulder, but I didn't feel it. And she knew. That night, I got a text from my buddy Greg. Vermont trip still on. We got the cabin. You in? You need it, man. I stared at the screen for a long while. Danielle passed by, glanced at my phone, then kept walking. She didn't ask. I typed, appreciate it. Rain check. Truth was, I didn't want to be around anyone right now. I couldn't fake the laughs. Couldn't drink enough to drown the noise. The images from Riley's envelope kept flashing in my head. Danielle, smiling up at him, her hand on his chest, her head tilted in the way she used to lean against me. And yet, I hadn't said a word about it. That was the part that haunted me the most. Not the betrayal. The silence. Friday night, we sat on the balcony. City lights blinking below us. The sound of distant sirens mixing with jazz from someone's rooftop speaker. She poured 2 glasses of wine and handed me one. She clinked it gently against mine. To the weekend, she said. I took a sip. To whatever that means anymore. She turned. What's that supposed to mean? I shrugged. Nothing. Danielle narrowed her eyes. No, it means something. You've been acting different. I met her stare. You're imagining things. Her voice sharpened. Don't do that. Don't gaslight me. Now I turned fully to face her. Funny choice of words. She blinked. Excuse me. You say I'm being distant. But you disappear into your phone half the night. You smell like a man's cologne that isn't mine. And you think cooking pasta and buying me cologne makes it all go away? Her jaw clenched. So now you're accusing me? I held her gaze. Calm. I didn't yell. I didn't flinch. I'm not accusing. I'm observing. She stood, pacing now. This is toxic, Scott. Seriously, you're reading into things that aren't there. Then tell me, I said evenly. Where were you last Thursday night at 10:30? She froze. 1 second too long. That's rich, she muttered. You're the one who's checked out. You don't touch me anymore. You don't talk. You just sit there stewing. I ask one question and you act like I committed a crime. I didn't reply. She stepped closer, voice rising now. Say something, damn it. I looked at her for a long moment and then quietly said, I'm just watching. That's all. Danielle stared at me like I'd slapped her. Then she scoffed, turned away, and walked back inside. Her wine glass still half full, her footsteps sharp across the tile. I sat there a while longer, listening to the city and the silence. The storm hadn't come yet, but the clouds were building. It was 3:11 a.m. The kind of hour where the world outside is dead silent and your thoughts are anything but. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, wrapped in the dim light of the fridge, clutching a coffee that had long gone cold. My thumb tapped absently against the ceramic mug while my eyes stayed fixed on the photos stuck to the stainless steel surface. One in particular. Me and Danielle, laughing in the rain outside City Hall, soaked, breathless, unstoppable. She had mascara smudged under her eyes from crying during our vows, and I was holding her like I never wanted to let go. I remembered that day like it had happened yesterday. And now? Now, I couldn't remember the last time she looked at me like that. The house was silent. Danielle was asleep down the hall, curled up on the far side of the bed, same way she had for the past week. We hadn't touched in days. I knew her breathing pattern by now. Long inhale, short exhale. Even in sleep, she kept a distance. I stared at the photo, trying to summon the feeling I once had in that moment. That foolish belief that love, when chosen sincerely, could weather anything. But love didn't feel like a choice anymore. It felt like an echo. The cup in my hand was trembling slightly. I set it down before it shattered. My phone buzzed quietly beside me. A text from Greg, sent hours ago. Let me know if you want to talk. Seriously, man. I didn't reply. What would I even say? That my wife was kissing her boss behind closed doors? That she could still cook my favorite meals and laugh at the right jokes while lying to my face? That the person I built a life with was slowly becoming a stranger with my last name? No. I couldn't talk about it yet, because if I started, I wouldn't be able to stop. I got up, walked over to the fridge, and pulled off the photo. Just stared at it in my hand. That smile, that expression, that trust. She was telling me forever in that moment. But now I knew she had whispered forever to someone else. I don't know how long I stood there. Maybe minutes. Maybe more. Eventually, I slipped the photo into the drawer by the sink, not ready to throw it away, but no longer able to look at it. Then I sat back down. The silence felt heavier than before, like something permanent had shifted. I wasn't broken. Not yet. But something in me had started to rust. My dignity. It was still there, but it was standing on shaking legs. If this part resonates, give the video a thumbs up. It was the kind of estate that made you feel poor just standing in the driveway. A modern marvel in the Hamptons, steel beams, glass walls, hedges cut so precisely they looked animated. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not tonight. Not like this. But I stood at the foot of the marble steps in a navy suit, hair sharp, breath steady. And beside me, in a blood-red dress that turned every head within 50 feet, was Riley. "You sure you're ready for this?" she asked under her breath as we walked toward the double doors. "I've been ready for days," I said quietly. "You're the one walking into your husband's lair." She smirked. "Ex-husband." As of this morning, I filed. A valet opened the door, and the sound of soft jazz spilled out. Inside, the party was already in full swing. High-end caterers passing around tiny bites on silver trays, clusters of executives laughing with their mouths, but not their eyes, and the air thick with wine, wealth, and white lies. Danielle was easy to spot. She stood near the fireplace, clutching a flute of champagne, laughing with two other women in pencil skirts. Her hair was swept up, and her smile was effortless, but her posture? Relaxed. Too relaxed. Until she saw us. Me. And Riley. Arm in arm. Her smile faltered mid-laugh, and for a split second, I saw something unfiltered cross her face. Panic. Riley squeezed my arm gently. Eyes on the king. I followed her gaze across the room. There he was. Kenneth Lang, the CEO. Salt and pepper hair, linen suit, one hand in his pocket like he owned gravity itself. And when he saw Riley with me, he moved like a man stepping on a landmine. He stalked across the room, jaw tight, eyes locked on Riley like she'd stolen something from him. "What the hell is this?" he growled, stopping inches from her. Riley smiled sweetly. "Hi, Kenny. Miss me?" He turned to me. "Is this a joke?" I shrugged, sipping my drink. "You invited her, didn't you?" "I didn't invite you. You invited Danielle." Riley cut in, her voice silk over steel. "He's her plus one." Danielle had walked over now, pale, her voice low and brittle. "Scott, can we talk?" "Not now," I said evenly. "We're mingling." Her eyes darted to Riley, then to the CEO, then back to me. "Please." I took another sip, looked straight at Kenneth. "I just have one question," I said calmly. "Do all your business meetings end with hotel receipts?" The room hushed. Danielle froze. Kenneth blinked, thrown. "You watch your mouth," he snapped, stepping closer. I didn't move. "You don't get to threaten me. You don't get to hide behind titles when you're wrecking people's lives. You're nobody," he spat. "You think showing up here with her gives you power? She's a joke." Riley's smile dropped. "Careful, Ken. You know what I think," he barked. "I think you're just a bitter employee and a pathetic husband." And with that, he shoved me. Hard. I stumbled back, hit the edge of a chair, and then everything went black. I remember the sound of glass shattering. Gasps. The thud of my body hitting the floor. Then nothing. Just silence. Dark, peaceful silence. I woke up to that kind of hospital light that makes everything look worse than it is. Pale, flat, unforgiving. There was a soft beeping somewhere near my head. My mouth was dry. My temple throbbed in slow, dull waves. And beside me, in a leather chair pushed too close to the bed, sat Riley, one leg crossed over the other, phone in hand, eyes scanning something I couldn't see. She looked up the moment she heard me stir. "Welcome back, hero," she said, setting the phone down and leaning in slightly. I blinked a few times. "What happened?" Her smile was tight. "You stood up to a corporate monster in front of 50 people and got a free flight to the ER for your trouble." I tried to sit up. Regretted it immediately. "Easy," she said, pressing a hand gently against my shoulder. "You hit the marble corner of a table on the way down. No concussion, but they stitched you up." I reached for my head and felt the bandage. "Great." You should have seen the CEO's face when security dragged him out, she said, smirking, like a toddler who dropped his ice cream. I let out a low breath. So, it worked. Oh, it worked, Riley said, sitting back. Board members are in meltdown. PR's spinning nonsense, legals sharpening knives, and investors are ready to bail. She opened her phone and turned it toward me, headlines flashing across the screen. Lang Corp CEO accused of workplace misconduct after private party incident, affair, assault, and whistleblowers. What really happened at Lang's Hamptons estate? I stared at it. My name wasn't in the articles, but the photos were clear. Riley helping me up, the CEO mid-shove, Danielle caught between them like a statue melting under pressure. This'll ruin him, I said. Riley nodded. That's the idea. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Her hair was pulled back now. No lipstick. Just her, stripped down, unpolished, still here. You planned it perfectly. I hoped it wouldn't get violent, she said. But you were brave, Scott. You held your ground. I exhaled and stared at the ceiling. It doesn't feel like winning. That's because it's not a clean win, she said softly. You lost something too. We sat in silence for a few beats. Then she leaned forward and brushed a knuckle lightly against my arm. I meant what I said. You didn't deserve any of this. And I'm sorry you had to find out like that. I'm not, I said quietly. Not anymore. She tilted her head. Really, pain's better than pretending. Riley smiled, but it wasn't smug. It was quiet, thoughtful. Then, unexpectedly, she leaned in and kissed my forehead. Gentle, careful not to brush the bandage. Get some rest, she whispered. The storm's over. As she stood and adjusted the blanket over me, I closed my eyes, not to sleep, just to let it all settle. We'd exposed them, told the truth, pulled the curtain all the way back. But even as the dust began to fall, I could still feel it, the bruised echo of love, the price of dignity, and the strange comfort of not being alone in the aftermath. It was just past 7:30 that evening when I heard the soft knock. I was sitting up in the hospital bed, tray pushed aside, untouched dinner cooling next to me. Riley had left earlier with a quiet promise to check in tomorrow. The room was quiet now, just me, the slow beep of the monitor, and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. The door creaked open slowly. Danielle stepped in, wrapped in a long beige coat, makeup worn from the day. She looked different, not just tired, hollow. Her eyes were red around the edges like she'd been crying in the car, but had run out of tears before making it to the elevator. She stood in the doorway for a few seconds like she was waiting for permission to enter. I didn't speak. She finally took a few tentative steps forward, her heels softer than usual. Hey, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I just looked at her. I didn't know if I should come, but Riley said visiting hours were open. I nodded once. They are. She let out a shaky breath and moved to the chair beside my bed, lowering herself like the weight of her own body might snap something fragile. Her hands fidgeted in her lap. I saw what happened, she said. Someone sent me the video. I saw you fall. I raised an eyebrow. You were there. I was, she said quickly, but I wasn't close. I didn't know he'd. Her voice broke off, and she swallowed hard. I shouldn't have let it get that far, she murmured. Still, I said nothing. Danielle leaned forward. I'm sorry, Scott. For all of it. I finally looked at her. Which part? She blinked. What? I kept my voice calm. The lying? The affair? Or the fact that you tried to keep it going while still kissing me goodnight? Her eyes welled instantly, but she didn't cry. I was confused, she whispered. No, I said, shaking my head. You were committed. Don't insult both of us. She looked down, hands trembling. You don't understand what it was like. You're right, I cut in. I don't. I never cheated. I didn't need someone else to feel seen. I never stopped loving you, she said suddenly, desperate now. That's the problem, I replied. You love me enough to stay, but not enough to stay loyal. She went still. I leaned back against the pillow. I know everything, Danielle. The dinners, the hotels, the meetings that ran late. Her mouth opened slightly, like she was going to deny it, but she stopped herself. I tried to fix it, she said softly. I made dinner. I bought you that cologne. After the photos were already taken, I said flatly. She winced. I wanted to tell you. I swear I did, she said. But every time I looked at you, I couldn't. I met her eyes. Not because you felt guilty. Because you didn't want to lose what you had at home while chasing what you thought you deserved outside it. Danielle wiped her face quickly, breathing hard now. I'm so sorry, Scott, she said again. If I could take it back, I would. You can't. Silence fell again. Heavier this time. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Then don't say anything. She stood, hands still shaking. Can we talk? When you're discharged. Maybe we can find a way to, we're done. The words left my mouth so simply, so cleanly, that she didn't register them at first. I'm not angry, I added. I'm not here to punish you. I can't keep sharing my life with someone who didn't guard it. She stared at me, lips parted. But, leave the room, Danielle. Tears finally broke loose, streaming quietly as she looked around the sterile space, searching for some kind of anchor. There was none. She backed toward the door slowly, her face crumpling, her body shaking with soundless sobs. I watched her leave. Didn't flinch. Didn't chase her. The door clicked shut behind her, a soft, final sound. And for the first time in weeks, I breathed all the way in. The bell above the cafe door jingled softly as I stepped inside. The place was small, tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore on a quiet downtown street. No music, just the low hum of voices and the clink of silverware on ceramic. Riley was already there. Same corner table. Same black coffee. She looked up as I approached, her expression unreadable, but calmer than I'd ever seen it. Hey, I said. Hey, she replied, gesturing to the seat across from her. How's the head? Healing, I said, easing down into the chair. Little sore. Better than the alternative. She reached under the table and pulled out a thick manila folder, sliding it toward me. What's this? I asked. Closure, she said. Or at least a version of it. I opened it. Inside were papers, statements, timelines, legal drafts, internal emails. Things I hadn't seen. Things Riley had clearly been holding on to. This, she said, tapping the stack, would bury both of them. I flipped through a few pages, payments between accounts, hotel invoices billed under fake departments, a full legal motion for misconduct already drafted. Even the CEO's assistant had signed a written statement. You really built a case? I said. I built a reckoning, she corrected. All I needed was someone brave enough to be the first domino. I closed the folder slowly. She waited. Then I slid it back across the table. She raised an eyebrow. That's it. I'm not going to court, I said. Not for this. Not anymore. Her mouth tightened. Why not? Because she has to live with it, I said. With herself. With the people at work whispering behind her back. With the silence I left behind. That's more permanent than any lawsuit. Riley leaned back, studying me. You're sharper than I thought. I'm just done bleeding over people who never deserve the cut, I said. She didn't smile, but something in her posture eased. She'll never recover from what she lost, Riley said after a moment. Not professionally, not personally. I nodded. I know. She pushed the folder to the side and picked up her coffee again. We sat in silence for a few minutes, just letting it breathe. Then Riley glanced at me. So, what now? I looked out the window at the slow-falling snow beyond the glass. I think I'd just start over, I said. One quiet day at a time. Her voice softened. That's not the worst ending. No, I said. It's not. And for once, I meant it. Exactly 7 days later, I found myself back at that same corner table. Same cafe, same worn wood under my elbows, same slow jazz humming beneath the surface. Only this time, it didn't feel like a meeting. Riley sat across from me, wrapped in a charcoal sweater, steam curling up from her cup as snow dusted the world beyond the window. The storm outside was soft, quiet. The kind you barely notice until the whole street's blanketed white. I used to hate snow, she said suddenly, her eyes on the window. Always meant delays, cancellations, people forgetting how to drive. I smiled. Still does. She glanced at me, and something flickered in her expression. But now, I kind of like it, she said. It's like the world gets forced to slow down. I nodded, sipping my coffee. I needed that. We sat in silence for a beat. Not awkward. Not forced. I thought I'd feel more angry, I admitted. But I don't. Riley raised an eyebrow. What do you feel? I thought for a moment. Lighter. Not healed. But honest. Like everything I was pretending not to see is finally gone. She smiled, a real one this time. That's the beginning. Not the end. Outside, a couple walked by holding hands, bundled and laughing. Riley watched them for a moment. You think you'll ever trust someone again? She asked. I turned to her. I think I already do. Her eyes met mine, steady. We didn't say anything else for a while. We didn't need to. The quiet between us felt like something new, not silence from pain, but space for something to grow. And in that tiny cafe, with the snow falling slow and steady, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Not hope, not yet, but peace. And that was enough to begin again. And that was the end of my story. Riley took a risk by dragging everything into the light, confronting her husband, exposing the affair, and showing up at that party with me, knowing it could cost her everything. But she did it anyway. So tell me honestly, did she do the right thing? Or was it just revenge in disguise? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if this story hit something real for you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more.